The drop pod screamed through atmospheric entry, trailing fire like a comet falling into hell. Lieutenant Ryan Carter gripped the harness straps hard enough to leave marks in the reinforced fabric. 3 seconds until impact. 2. 1. Metal shrieked against alien soil and the pod's door blew outward in a spray of hydraulic fluid. Ryan rolled into smoke and chaos, his rifle already tracking targets across the shattered remains of what used to be a human research station. The Careth had hit it 6 hours ago. Orbital Command said there were no survivors. Orbital Command was wrong about a lot of things lately. Plasma bolts sizzled past his helmet close enough to smell ozone. Ryan dropped behind a collapsed wall section and returned fire in controlled bursts. 2 Careth warriors went down in sprays of purple ichor. Their armor cracked like eggshells under human ammunition. They'd learned that lesson the hard way when they'd first invaded. Humans didn't have energy shields or gravity manipulation. Humans had tungsten core rounds that punched through alien technology like it was tissue paper. Movement in his peripheral vision made Ryan spin left. He nearly fired before his brain caught up to what his eyes were seeing. A Careth female stumbled from the burning wreckage of the research lab, but she wasn't attacking. She was running, and she was carrying something. No, someone. The bundle in her forearms was human-sized and wrapped in what looked like emergency thermal blankets. Ryan's tactical display screamed warnings about enemy contacts closing from the east. He had maybe 20 seconds before he'd be overrun. The Careth female's violet eyes met his through the smoke. She didn't have a weapon. Her ceremonial combat armor was scorched and torn. 3 of her 6 facial tendrils hung limp and burned. She spoke in broken English that sounded like glass chimes in a hurricane. Please, Dr. Flynn, still alive. They hunt her. Ryan's fingers stayed on the trigger. Why would you help a human? Because she helped me first. Plasma fire erupted from the eastern ridge. The Careth female threw herself over the bundle she carried and took a direct hit across her back. The smell of burning flesh filled the air. She didn't scream. She kept moving toward Ryan with terrifying determination. He made a decision that would either save lives or end his own. Ryan grabbed the bundle from her arms and slung it over his shoulder. Then he grabbed the Careth female's wrist and pulled her behind the wall as the world exploded into coherent light and superheated death. "Can you run?" Ryan shouted over the weapon fire. She looked at him with eyes that held something he didn't expect to see in an alien face. Hope. Yes. Then run with me. Ryan's lungs burned as they sprinted across the broken landscape. The Careth female kept pace despite the plasma wound across her back that leaked luminescent blood in trails behind them. He didn't know her species could bleed that color. He didn't know a lot of things about them beyond how to kill them efficiently. The bundle on his shoulder shifted. A weak voice emerged from the thermal wrapping. "Kyle, put me down. You're carrying her too." "Not Kyle, ma'am. Lieutenant Ryan Carter, Colonial Marines. And I'm not putting anyone down until we're clear." The bundle went silent. Ryan vaulted over a crater rim and slid down the opposite side with the Careth's female right behind him. She moved with predatory grace, even injured. Her species had evolved on a high-gravity world where being slow meant being prey. Humans had evolved on Earth where being clever meant survival. Together they made a decent team for running through hell. Ryan's tactical display showed the extraction point 2 kilometers northwest. His drop pod had been a one-way ticket. The real evac bird would touch down in 7 minutes. If they missed it, the next one wouldn't come. The Careth controlled orbital space now. Humanity was losing this war, one colony at a time. Plasma bolts impacted the crater wall above them. The Careth female hissed something in her native language that sounded like cursing. Ryan agreed with the sentiment. "We need to move faster," she said. "They send hunters now. Trackers. They smell my blood. Can you fight? She flexed her 4 arms. Each hand had 3 fingers tipped with claws that could tear through combat armor, always. Ryan unsealed the thermal bundle, enough to check on Dr. Flynn. The woman inside was maybe 30, with auburn hair matted with blood and eyes that had seen too much. A deep gash across her shoulder was bandaged with strips of Kareth cloth. "Who bandaged you?" Ryan asked. Flynn looked at the alien female. "Nira did. She's been protecting me for 2 days." The name hit Ryan strange. Humans didn't name their enemies. Enemies were targets, threats, problems to solve with bullets and grenades, but this Kareth had a name, and she'd saved a human life when her own people wanted that human dead. "Why?" Ryan asked, Nira directly. The alien female's tendrils rippled in what might have been emotion. "Dr. Flynn fixed my sister when Kareth medics would not. Said sister was defective, should die. Dr. Flynn saved her anyway. Debt must be repaid. Your people are hunting you for this." "Yes." Ryan checked his ammunition count. 30 rounds left, 3 grenades, 1 combat knife. Against an entire Kareth hunting pack, those numbers meant nothing. But humans had never let bad odds stop them before. "Then we fight our way out together," he said. Nira's eyes widened. Among her people, fighting beside someone was a bond deeper than blood. It was a declaration of trust that transcended species and war. The first hunter crested the crater ridge. Ryan put 2 rounds through its skull before it could raise its weapon. The creature dropped and tumbled down the slope. Its armor clattered against rocks like wind chimes made of bone. More shapes appeared along the ridge, dozens of them. The hunting pack had arrived. Ryan pulled Flynn tight against the crater wall and positioned himself in front of her. Nira took position on his left, her claws extended and ready. Her wounded back still leaked that strange glowing blood, but she stood firm. "How many can you take?" Ryan asked. Nira showed her teeth in what might have been a smile. "As many as needed." The hunters descended into the crater like a wave of violet death. Ryan opened fire and the world became thunder and light. His rifle barked in steady rhythm. Spent casings rained around his boots. Each shot found flesh. Each shot bought another second of survival. Nira moved like liquid violence beside him. She caught a hunter's throat with her claws and tore, caught another's weapon arm and snapped it backward. Her species didn't just fight. They performed combat like it was art. Flynn pulled a pistol from her jacket. "I can shoot." "Then shoot," Ryan said. 3 humans and aliens fighting together against impossible odds. The Kareth hunters kept coming. Ryan's rifle clicked empty. He dropped it and drew his sidearm without breaking rhythm. Beside him, Nira took a plasma bolt to her shoulder and kept fighting. Beside her, Flynn fired with shaking hands that grew steadier with each trigger pull. They were going to die here. Ryan knew it. Nira probably knew it too. But they'd die fighting, and that was all that mattered. Then the sky split open with the roar of human engines. The extraction bird came in low and angry. Its chain guns lit up the crater ridge like the wrath of God. Kareth hunters exploded into purple mist. The ones that survived scattered. A rope ladder dropped from the bird's open door. Ryan grabbed Flynn and pushed her toward it. "Climb!" Nira hesitated. "They will not take me. They will, or I'm staying here." The alien female looked at him with those violet eyes. "You would die for enemy? You're not my enemy anymore." Nira climbed. Flynn climbed. Ryan climbed last with his pistol firing upward at any hunter stupid enough to show itself. The extraction bird's engines screamed as it pulled away from the surface. Plasma fire chased them into the sky, but human pilots flew like demons when lives were on the line. They made orbit trailing smoke and swearing. Inside the bird's crew compartment, a sergeant with scar tissue where his left ear used to be stared at Nira like she was a bomb about to detonate. "Sir, you brought a hostile aboard." Ryan checked Flynn's bandages and then checked Nira's wounds. Both were stable. Both were alive. "I brought 2 people who earned extraction, Sergeant. Anyone has a problem with that can take it up with me." Nobody did. The orbital station's medical bay smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Ryan stood outside the quarantine room watching through reinforced glass as doctors worked on Flynn and Nira simultaneously. The Kareth female had refused sedation. She sat rigid on the examination table while a medical team tried to understand her biology well enough to keep her from dying. Colonel Patricia Grant arrived with the sound of boots that meant business. She was 50 years of combat experience, wrapped in regulation uniform and a stare that could melt hull plating. "Explain to me why we have a live Kareth on my station, Lieutenant." Ryan didn't look away from the window. "She saved Dr. Flynn's life, carried her through hostile territory for 2 days, took plasma fire protecting her. That earned sanctuary in my book. Your book isn't military protocol. Protocol didn't keep Flynn alive. Nira did." Grant stepped beside him and watched the medical team work. Inside the room, Nira's tendrils moved in patterns that the doctors were frantically documenting. Flynn was awake now, talking to the alien female in low tones that the microphones couldn't pick up clearly. "Intelligence wants to interrogate her," Grant said. "They think she might have tactical information. Intelligence can get in line behind medical. She's wounded and exhausted." Grant's expression didn't change. "You're protective of an enemy combatant. She stopped being the enemy when she chose a human life over her own people." The colonel crossed her arms. "The Kareth don't think like we do, Carter. Their honor codes are different. This could be a trick." Then, "It's the most committed trick I've ever seen. She's got second-degree plasma burns across 40% of her body, 3 broken tendrils, internal damage our scanners can't even properly read. If this is an act, she deserves an award." Inside the quarantine room, one of the doctors called for assistance. Nira's luminescent blood pressure had dropped. The monitoring equipment screamed warnings in tones that meant dying. Flynn grabbed the alien female's upper right hand and squeezed, said something the microphone still couldn't catch. "Nira's vital signs stabilized," Grant noticed. "They've bonded." "Yes, ma'am. That complicates things." The door to the medical bay opened. Commander Lawrence Hoffman entered with 2 armed guards and an expression that promised problems. He was Intelligence Division. He was also known for getting results through methods that skirted ethical lines. "Colonel Grant, I'm here to take custody of the Karath prisoner." Grant didn't move. "She's in medical quarantine, Commander. Not available for transfer." "I have authorization from Fleet Command. The prisoner represents a significant intelligence asset. We need to extract information while it's still relevant." Ryan stepped between Hoffman and the quarantine room door. "She has a name. It's Nira, and she's not going anywhere until medical clears her." Hoffman's guards raised their rifles slightly, not aiming, just ready. "Stand down, Lieutenant." That's an order. "Respectfully, sir, I don't take orders from intelligence. My chain of command runs through Colonel Grant." Grant's hand moved to her sidearm, not drawing, just resting there in a way that made her position clear. "Commander Hoffman, this station is under my authority. You'll follow proper protocol or you'll leave my medical bay." The tension stretched tight enough to snap. Hoffman's jaw worked like he was chewing words too sharp to speak. Finally, he nodded. 20 to 4 hours, Colonel. Then she's mine whether medical clears her or not." He left with his guards. The threat lingered behind like radiation. Grant turned to Ryan. "You just made an enemy of Intelligence Division. Wouldn't be the first time. It might be the last." "Hoffman doesn't forgive. Inside the quarantine room, the medical team finished stabilizing Nira's condition. Flynn had fallen asleep in a chair beside the examination table, still holding the alien female's hand. Nira's violet eyes tracked Ryan through the glass. She raised her lower left hand in what might have been gratitude or acknowledgement. Ryan returned the gesture. Grant watched the exchange with an expression that was hard to read. "You believe she's genuine?" "Yes, ma'am. I've seen enough combat to know when someone's faking she's not. Then we have a problem. Because if she's genuine, that means the Kareth aren't the monolithic enemy we thought they were. Means some of them can choose differently. Means this war might be more complicated than anyone wants to admit." Ryan had been thinking the same thing. Wars were easier when the enemy was simple, when every alien was a threat and every human was innocent. But Nira had shattered that simplicity by doing something impossible. She'd chosen mercy over loyalty, chosen a human over her own kind. That changed everything. A junior officer approached with a datapad. "Colonel, we're getting signals from the surface Karath fleet movements. They're massing ships above the colony." Grant took the pad, and her expression went cold. "They're preparing for orbital bombardment. They're going to glass the entire settlement. How long do we have?" 6 hours. Maybe less." Ryan looked through the glass at Flynn and Nira. "There are still civilians down there. Evacuation protocols?" "Already initiated, but we don't have enough transport capacity. We'll save maybe 60% if we're lucky." 60% meant 40% would die. Hundreds of people turned to ash because humanity didn't have enough ships in the right place at the right time. Nira stood suddenly inside the quarantine room. Her monitoring equipment protested, but she ignored it. She moved to the glass and pressed her upper hands against it. Her eyes locked on Grant. When she spoke, her voice came through the intercom, distorted but clear. "I know Kareth fleet patterns. No weak points. Can help save your people." Grant studied the alien female for a long moment. "Why would you help us again?" "Because Dr. Flynn showed me that mercy is not weakness, that choosing life over death is not dishonor. I would show my people the same, even if they kill me for it." Ryan saw the decision form in Grant's eyes, saw her weigh protocol against necessity, weigh suspicion against desperate need. "Get her cleaned up and equipped," Grant ordered. "We have 6 hours to pull off a miracle. Might as well use every asset we have." Ryan moved toward the quarantine room door. Behind him, Grant added one more thing. "Carter, if this goes wrong and she betrays us, it's on you." "Understood, ma'am." He opened the door and stepped inside. Nira turned to face him. Up close, her alien features were startling, beautiful in a way that transcended species. Her tendrils moved in patterns that might have been relief. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me yet. We still have to save a few hundred people and survive whatever your fleet throws at us." Nira's teeth showed in that expression that might have been a smile. "Then we fight together again." "Yeah," Ryan said. "Together." Outside the quarantine room, Grant was already coordinating the evacuation effort. Ships were launching, civilians were scrambling, and above the colony, Kareth warships gathered like storm clouds ready to break. The clock was ticking. The tactical briefing room filled with officers who looked at Nira like she was a grenade with the pin pulled. She stood at the holographic display table beside Ryan while Grant pulled up fleet positions. The Kareth Armada showed as red markers hovering above the colony like predators circling wounded prey. "We have 4 transport ships on approach," Grant said. "Capacity for 2,000 civilians each. The colony holds 14,000 people. You see the problem?" A captain named Derek Vaughn leaned forward. "We hit them first. Take out enough warships to buy time for additional runs." "Our defensive platforms are already gone," Grant replied. "We have 2 frigates in system They send 30 capital ships. The math doesn't work. Mira reached toward the holographic display. Her 4 hands moved through the projected space, highlighting specific vessels in the Kareth formation. These ships carry orbital bombardment cannons. Main threat, but they position wrong. Too close together. Human vessels fast. Can exploit gap here and here. Vaughn's expression was pure skepticism. That's a kill box. Anything that goes through there gets shredded by crossfire. Only if Karath expect attack from that vector. They do not. Kareth doctrine says humans fight defensive, retreat, protect what remains, never attack when outnumbered. Ryan studied the formation. She's right. We always pull back when we're outgunned. They've learned to expect it. So we do the opposite, Grant said slowly. We punch straight through their weakest point while they're still setting up bombardment positions. Neera's tendrils rippled. Yes, but needs perfect timing. Transport ships must begin descent during attack. Karath will choose between stopping human warships or stopping transports. Cannot do both efficiently. They'll choose the warships, Vaughn said. Standard military doctrine. Eliminate the threat first. Exactly. Gives transports 7 minutes of reduced fire. Can extract additional 3,000 people in that window. Grant ran the calculations on her datapad. Her expression remained neutral, but Ryan could see the wheels turning. Still leaves 5,000 civilians on the ground. Second run, Neera said. After Kareth repositioned to counter first attack, new gap opens here. She highlighted a different vector. Smaller window. Maybe 4 minutes can extract 2,000 more. That's still 3,000 people we're abandoning. The room went silent. 3,000 lives written off as acceptable losses. Ryan's jaw clenched. There had to be another way. Flynn's voice came from the doorway. She'd left medical without authorization and looked pale but determined. There's a third option. The research station had experimental shielding. Dr. Marcus Lane was testing adaptive defense grids. If we activate those systems, they might protect the remaining civilians long enough for a third extraction run. Might isn't good enough, Vaughn said. It's better than definitely dead. Flynn shot back. The shields were designed to resist Kareth plasma weapons. Marcus was brilliant. If his work was even 50% functional, it could buy us the time we need. Grant pulled up the research station schematics. The main facility took heavy damage during the initial attack. The shield generators are in the sublevels. We'd need someone on the ground to activate them manually. I'll go, Ryan said immediately. You and what team? We don't have Marines to spare. Neera stepped forward. I go with him. Know Kareth tactics. Know how they clear buildings. Can guide through combat zones. Vaughn slammed his hand on the table. Absolutely not. We're not sending our only intelligence asset into a combat drop where she could be captured or killed. She's not an asset, Ryan said quietly. She's a volunteer. There's a difference. Grant looked between Ryan and Neera. You trust her that much? With my life, ma'am. The colonel's eyes shifted to Flynn. Doctor, you trust her assessment of the shield generators? Marcus sent me his final notes before the attack. The generators should work. Someone just needs to reach them and input the activation sequence. Grant made her decision with the speed of someone who'd commanded during 3 colony wars. Carter, you and Neera drop to the surface. Activate the shields. Buy us time for a third extraction run. Vaughn, you'll coordinate the frigate attack. Flynn, you're coming with me to oversee transport operations. Vaughn started to protest, but Grant's glare cut him off. We have 5 hours and 40 minutes until bombardment begins. Move. The briefing room emptied fast. Ryan and Neera headed for the armory while Grant's voice echoed through station intercoms coordinating the evacuation. Thousands of people scrambling for transport berths, families grabbing what they could carry. children crying, parents making impossible choices about what to leave behind. In the armory, a sergeant named Cole Harris outfitted Ryan with fresh ammunition and grenades. He looked at Nira with barely concealed hostility. "She needs gear too," Ryan said. "We don't have equipment sized for Karef." Nira examined the human weapons with professional interest. Her lower hands picked up a combat shotgun, tested the weight. Her upper hands grabbed 2 pistols. "These will work." Harris reluctantly provided ammunition. "Those weapons aren't designed for your hand configuration. We'll adapt." Ryan checked his rifle and sealed his armor. Beside him, Nira loaded weapons with disturbing efficiency. Her forearms could reload 2 guns simultaneously while holding a third ready to fire. In close combat, she'd be devastating. "You don't have to do this," Ryan said. "You've already done more than anyone could ask." Nira's violet eyes met his. "Dr. Flynn taught me that some debts cannot be measured, only honored. Your people die if we fail. That is unacceptable. Your people are the ones killing mine. Then I will stop them, or die trying." The drop pod waited in the launch bay, smaller than the one Ryan had used before, designed for stealth insertion rather than combat entry. They'd be going in quiet, landing in the research station's emergency bay, hoping the Karath hadn't posted guards. Flynn appeared as they were climbing into the pod. She pressed a data chip into Ryan's hand. The activation codes, Marcus changed them weekly. "These are current as of 3 days ago. What if he changed them again?" "Then you improvise. You're good at that." She turned to Nira and said something in the Karath language. Ryan's translator couldn't catch it. Nira responded in kind. The 2 females touched foreheads briefly in what looked like a gesture of deep respect. Flynn stepped back. "Bring him home, Nira. Will protect with my life." The pod sealed. Ryan and Nira strapped into the crash harnesses. The launch bay depressurized. Through the small viewport, Ryan could see the colony below. Lights scattered across darkness. Each light a home, a family, a life that might end in 5 hours if they failed. The pod launched and gravity inverted. They fell toward the planet in a controlled plummet. No fire trail this time. No screaming entry. Just silent descent through vacuum into atmosphere. Nira's hand found Ryan's in the darkness of the pod, her 3 fingers interlaced with his 5 in a gesture that transcended species. "We will succeed," she said. Ryan squeezed back. "Yeah, we will." The pod hit atmosphere, and the world outside became fire. The pod touched down in the research station's emergency bay with barely a whisper. Stealth landing systems worked perfectly. Ryan popped the hatch and emerged into darkness, broken only by emergency lighting that strobed red across shattered equipment and scorched walls. Nira flowed out behind him, weapons ready, her head tilted as she listened to sounds Ryan couldn't hear. "Building empty this level." Karath cleared it already. "Moved to upper floors searching for survivors." "How many?" "Smell indicates 12 warriors, maybe more." They moved through the station like ghosts. Ryan took point with Nira covering their flanks with preternatural awareness. Her species had evolved hunting in low light. She saw heat signatures, detected movement through vibration. Every few meters she'd stop and taste the air with her tendrils in a way that looked alien but proved useful. The shield generators were 3 levels down. The stairwell entrance was blocked by collapsed ceiling panels. Ryan examined the rubble and calculated it would take 20 minutes to clear manually. "We don't have 20 minutes," he said. Nira holstered 2 pistols and gripped the largest debris piece with all 4 arms. Muscles flexed under her scaled skin. The concrete slab shifted, groaned, lifted. She hurled it aside with a crash that echoed through the station like a dinner bell. Footsteps pounded above them. The Karath had heard. "Go," Nira said. "I hold them here. We stick together." No time for human stubbornness. Generators need activation. I delay enemy, you complete mission. She was right, and Ryan hated it. He grabbed her upper shoulder. 5 minutes. You hold for 5 minutes, then fall back to the generator room. We extract together or not at all. Nira's tendrils moved in patterns that might have been affection. 5 minutes. Go. Ryan went. He descended the stairwell 3 steps at a time while above him the first Kareth warriors arrived. Nira's shotgun roared. Alien voices screamed. The sound of combat followed Ryan down into darkness. The generator room was exactly where Flynn's schematics indicated. Massive cylindrical machines lined the walls, humming with residual power. Control panels flickered with standby indicators. Ryan pulled out the data chip and jammed it into the main terminal. The screen lit up requesting authorization codes. Ryan input the sequence Flynn had provided. The system rejected it. "Come on," he muttered. Tried again. Rejected again. Above him, the firefight intensified. Nira was buying him time with her life. He needed to make it count. Think, Dr. Lane changed codes weekly. Lynn said these were current as of 3 days ago. What if Lane had automated the changes? What if there was a pattern? Ryan pulled up the code history, studied the sequences. Each one differed by exactly 7 characters, a weekly rotation. If the pattern held, he could calculate the current code. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Mathematics had never been his strength, but desperation made him sharp. He input the calculated sequence. The system accepted it. Shields began powering up. The generators spun faster. Their hum became a roar. On the control screen, a defensive grid materialized around the station and the surrounding colony sectors. Adaptive plating that would disperse plasma impacts across the entire network. Not invincible, but strong enough to survive orbital bombardment, long enough for evacuation. Ryan keyed his comm. "Grant, shields are active. You've got your window." The colonel's voice crackled back. "Confirmed. Third wave transports are launching. 12 minutes to surface." 12 minutes! Ryan turned and ran back toward the stairwell, toward Nira, toward the sounds of combat that had grown disturbingly quiet. He found her on the second landing. She was still standing, but barely. Plasma burns covered her right side. One arm hung useless. Purple blood pooled around her feet. 6 Kareth warriors lay dead around her. She kept her promise, held them for 5 minutes, held them until the mission was complete. But more warriors were coming down from above. Ryan opened fire. His rifle cut through the first 2 before they could raise weapons. The third took cover and returned fire. Plasma bolts turned the stairwell into an oven. Ryan dragged Nira behind a support pillar and checked her wounds. "Bad?" she asked. "You've had worse." "Liar," but appreciated. Ryan slapped a medical pack against her burns. Human supplies weren't designed for Kareth biology, but the cooling gel seemed to help. Nira's breathing steadied. Her remaining functional arms gripped weapons. "Can you move?" "Then fight." "That's not what I asked." His same answer for me. More Karath poured into the stairwell. Ryan counted 8. Maybe 10. Too many for 2 wounded soldiers in a compromised position. But Ryan had 3 grenades left and absolutely nothing to lose. He primed one and threw it high. The explosion shook the building. Kareth warriors screamed. Ryan used the confusion to advance, firing as he moved. Nira matched him step for step despite her injuries. They fought like they'd been partners for years instead of hours. Ryan would go high, Nira would go low. Ryan would reload. Nira would provide cover. When Ryan's rifle clicked empty, Nira tossed him one of her pistols without looking. The weapon felt alien in his grip, but it fired true. They reached the ground floor, leaving bodies behind them. The emergency bay was 50 meters away. The extraction pod waited. Safety was close enough to taste. Then the ceiling exploded inward. A Kareth champion dropped through the hole, trailing armor plating that looked like it could stop artillery. It was massive, twice the size of normal warriors, 4 arms each holding a different weapon. Its tendrils were scarred and decorated with kill markers. This wasn't a soldier. This was a legend given flesh. The champion's eyes locked on Nira. When it spoke, its voice was thunder wrapped in contempt. It spoke in Karath, but Ryan's translator caught the meaning. Traitor. Dishonored. You die screaming. Nira stepped forward, placed herself between Ryan and the champion. Her voice was steady despite her wounds. I am not dishonored. I chose mercy, chose life. You are the ones who abandoned honor when you made war on healers. The champion laughed. You chose human over blood, over clan, over everything sacred. You are nothing. I am more than I was, more than you will ever understand. The champion attacked. It moved faster than something that large should move. All 4 weapons firing simultaneously. Ryan rolled left. Nira rolled right. The floor where they'd been standing vaporized. Ryan emptied his pistol into the champion's armor. The round sparked off without penetrating. Nira's shotgun roared, managed to crack one shoulder plate. The champion backhanded her with enough force to send her crashing into a wall. Ryan charged. It was tactically stupid. It was emotionally necessary. He dropped the empty pistol and drew his combat knife. 8 inches of carbon steel against a walking tank. The math didn't work, but math had never stopped a human from doing something brave and stupid. The champion caught Ryan mid-charge, lifted him off the ground with one hand around his throat, squeezed. Ryan's vision started to gray. He stabbed the knife into the champion's wrist. Purple blood flowed. The grip loosened slightly. Nira hit the champion from behind. All 3 functional arms wrapped around its neck. Her claws dug deep. The champion roared and spun, trying to shake her off. Ryan fell, gasped for air, watched Nira fight with everything she had left. She was dying. Ryan could see it. Her wounds were too severe. She'd lost too much blood. But she didn't stop, didn't let go, kept fighting because that's what warriors did. Ryan grabbed his last grenade, pulled the pin, shoved it into the gap Nira's claws had opened in the champion's armor. Nira, break off! She understood instantly, released her grip and dropped. Ryan caught her as the champion looked down at the grenade lodged in its chest. The explosion was contained within the champion's armor. The creature came apart from the inside. Pieces of alien metal and flesh rained across the emergency bay. Ryan's comm crackled. Carter, this is Transport Delta 7. We're at your position. Pop smoke. He triggered his last smoke marker. Hauled Nira toward the pod. She was fading fast. Her eyes struggled to focus. Mission complete, she whispered. Mission complete. Shields are holding. Thousands of people are evacuating. You saved them. Good. Is good death then? You're not dying. I won't let you. The transport touched down. Medics rushed out. Human medics who'd never treated a Kareth before, but who tried anyway because that's what healers did. They loaded Nira onto a stretcher, loaded Ryan beside her. The transport lifted off as Kareth reinforcements arrived below. Through the viewport, Ryan watched the colony, watched transport ships rising like seeds on the wind. Thousands of lives saved because one alien female had chosen mercy over loyalty. Nira's hand found his again. Her grip was weak but present. Told you, Ryan said. Together. Her tendrils moved in patterns that might have been a smile. Together, the transport broke atmosphere. Ahead, the human fleet was already engaging Kareth warships. The battle for survival was just beginning. The station's medical bay had become a war zone of its own. Doctors ran between beds, treating wounded from the evacuation. The final transports had made it out minutes before the Karath bombardment turned the colony's surface into molten glass. 14,000 people saved. 0 casualties. A miracle built on sacrifice and impossible choices. Ryan sat beside Nira's bed. She'd been in surgery for 6 hours. Human doctors working alongside the one Karath physician who'd defected 3 months ago. Cross-species medicine performed in real time with lives hanging in the balance. Flynn appeared with coffee that smelled like recycled engine parts, but contained caffeine. She's stable. They think she'll survive. Think isn't no. It's better than the alternative. Grant entered the medical bay, still wearing her combat uniform. The battle had lasted 18 hours. 2 human frigates against 30 Karath capital ships. Tactics that shouldn't have worked but did, because Nira had been right about their formations, about their doctrine, about everything. We won, Grant said simply. Karath fleet withdrew. They're calling it a strategic repositioning, but intelligence says they're rattled. We shouldn't have survived. The fact we did changes their calculations. Ryan didn't take his eyes off Nira. What happens to her now? That's complicated. Fleet Command wants her debriefed. Intelligence still wants interrogation. The diplomatic corps thinks she might be useful for opening communication channels with Karath moderates. She's not a tool. I know that. You know that. But convincing everyone else will take time. Nira's eyes opened. Her tendrils moved weakly. When she spoke, her voice was rough from intubation. Am awake, can speak for self. Grant pulled up a chair. How do you feel? Like survived orbital bombardment and champion combat. So alive is good. Your people have withdrawn from this sector. Our analysts think you might have started something. Ada Karath are questioning the war, questioning whether humans are truly the enemy. Nira's laugh was bitter. Will not stop war, but maybe slows it, maybe save some lives, is enough. Flynn sat on the bed's edge. You saved my life, then helped save thousands more. That's more than enough. Debt is repaid then. There was never a debt, just 2 people choosing to help each other. Nira looked at Ryan. And you, human soldier, you chose to trust enemy, chose to fight beside me, chose to carry me when I could not walk. Why? Ryan had been asking himself the same question. The answer wasn't simple, wasn't clean, but it was true. Because you made a choice that mattered, because you proved that we're not as different as our governments want us to believe. Because someone had to be first. First what? First human to see a Karath as more than an enemy. First soldier to choose partnership over protocol. Maybe if enough people make that choice, this war ends differently. Grant stood. Which brings me to an official matter. Lieutenant Carter, you violated direct orders, brought an enemy combatant aboard my station, risked operational security, endangered classified technology. You did all this knowing the consequences. Ryan met her eyes. Yes, ma'am, I did. Fleet Command wants you court-martialed. Intelligence wants you charged with treason. Do you have anything to say in your defense? No, ma'am. I'd do it again. Grant's expression didn't change. Fortunately for you, the 14,000 civilians you saved have been flooding command with petitions. Turns out people don't want to court-martial the man who organized their rescue. Political pressure is a beautiful thing. So no court-martial? You're being promoted to captain, effective immediately. Congratulations. Try not to make me regret this. Ryan blinked. Ma'am, we need officers who can think beyond doctrine, who can make impossible calls under pressure. You've proven you can do both. Also, you're being assigned as liaison to our new Alien Relations Division. Nira's tendrils perked up. New division? You've opened a door, Nira. shown us that cooperation between species is possible, we'd be fools not to explore that possibility, assuming you're interested in helping. The Kareth female looked at Flynn, then at Ryan, then back to Grant. You would trust me? After everything? Trust is earned. You've earned it. The question is whether you want this responsibility. Nero was silent for a long moment. Outside the viewport, Kareth warships hung in distant space. Her people, her blood. But they'd branded her traitor, condemned her for choosing mercy. Going back meant execution. Staying meant something new, something unprecedented. Yes, Nero said finally, we'll help. We'll build bridge between species, even if bridge is small. Even if many refuse to cross, some will, is enough to try. Grant nodded. Then welcome aboard officially. We'll work out the details once you're recovered. For now, rest. You've earned it. The colonel left. Flynn followed after, squeezing Nera's hand one more time. Ryan started to rise, but Nera's lower hand caught his wrist. Stay, please. He sat back down. I'm not going anywhere. You saved my life, carried me through fire, fought beside me when your people said I was enemy. Why trust so completely? Ryan thought about the answer, about plasma fire and desperate sprints, about a Kareth female who'd chosen a human life over her own safety, about how wars were made of hatred but ended with small acts of courage, because someone showed me once that the bravest thing a soldier can do isn't killing enemies, it's making friends. You made a friend out of Dr. Flynn. I figured I could do the same. Nera's tendrils moved in complex patterns is not common among my people. Friendship across battle lines, but perhaps should be. Perhaps. They sat in comfortable silence while outside the station both human and Karath fleets began the slow process of disengagement. The war wasn't over, wouldn't be over for a long time, but something had changed. A crack in the certainty that had fueled years of violence. Two people from opposite sides had chosen differently, had fought together, had survived together. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. Flynn returned hours later with food, real food from the station's greenhouse, not ration packs. She'd brought enough for 3. They ate together in the medical bay while Nera explained Karath culture and humans explained Earth traditions, and slowly the walls between species began to feel less solid. Weeks would pass. Nero would recover. Ryan would begin his new assignment. Flynn would return to research with new questions about cross-species medicine. The war would continue, but with new possibilities emerging in its shadows. But in that moment, in that quiet medical bay, 3 people who shouldn't have been allies shared a meal and proved that sometimes the strongest weapon wasn't plasma or steel. It was the choice to see past the uniform, past the scales or skin, past everything that said enemy, and find the person underneath. Human soldier and alien woman had survived together, fought together, bled together, and in doing so, proved that even in the darkest wars, hope could still take root. It wasn't the end of conflict, but it was the beginning of something better. And